welcome to the deep dive. So you've sent over some really interesting sources, all centered around this Ingomu State of the Workplace Growth Report 2025.
Yeah, it's a meaty one.
Definitely. And our mission here for this deep dive is really to pull out the crucial stuff for you, what you actually need to grasp about the changing world of work, well-being, coaching, all of that, but without, drowning you in data points.
Exactly. We've got the main Ingomu report, which is drawing on giants like Gallup, McKinsey, Deloitte, SHRM, Gartner, BetterUp, ICF, even the WHO.
Right.
But then we've also got wider context from AP News, the Times of India, looking at global stuff, and more specific takes from places like Informa, Target, Chemical and Engineering News.
And economic policy angles, too. Tax Foundation, Bipartisan Policy Center.
Yeah, and the Daily Beast on current events. It gives us a pretty rounded picture, I think.
I'm sure. So think of this as your shortcut to understanding what feels like a real turning point. The report flags 2024 as pivotal, and we need to dig into these 2025 trends. A huge one seems to be this rise in holistic coaching. Sounds like it's directly tied to burnout, different expectations from employees, and honestly, a need for leaders who actually lead with purpose.
Absolutely. That comes through strongly.
Okay, let's get into it then. Where's the best place to start to really get a handle on the current situation?
Well, I think starting with the big picture makes sense. The overall state of workplace well-being and growth, just as the report lays it out, there are some pretty major global trends all hitting at once.
Okay. Yeah, the report kicks off with some, pretty arresting numbers. Gallup's 2024 data, finding 44% of employees feel burned out.
Yeah.
That's wow.
It's nearly half the workforce.
Almost half. And what really jumped out at me was the why. A full 50% of that burnout is chalked up to poor management and unclear expectations.
Yeah.
That probably resonates with a lot of people listening, right? That feeling of just not knowing what's needed or not getting the support.
It absolutely does. And that probably feeds right into the next trend, this bigger focus on purpose and flexibility.
Ah, right. McKinsey's study from this year.
It showed 70% of workers are now putting purpose ahead of things like more money or a promotion.
70%. That's a fundamental change in what people are looking for from work.
It really is. It's not just about the paycheck anymore. People want meaning.
Certainly. And then there's the tech angle, AI. It's weaving its way into everything, including L&D, learning, and development.
Deloitte's data, yeah, they often track this stuff, found over half of companies, 56%, are already using AI for things like learning platforms, even mental wellness tools, coaching.
Which is where it gets really interesting, tying back to coaching.
Exactly. And the Ingomu report pulls in stuff from the 2025 SHRM State of the Workplace report, too. That really doubles down on these points.
How so?
Well, you see HR leaders, the CHROs, 90% of them expect AI integration in HR to just get bigger. And 83% see its role specifically growing within HR functions.
Wow, okay, so huge belief in AI's potential there.
Yeah.
But it's not just about tech replacing tasks, is it?
No, not at all. SHRM also flags a major focus on employee well-being, mental health. Nearly 60% of HR leaders see that getting more emphasis.
Which links to another point they made, right? The need for rapid skill development.
Precisely. With automation potentially hitting, 19.2 million jobs.
Yeah, a huge number.
So there's this clear need for companies to invest in helping people adapt, learn new skills fast. The key idea seems to be blending AI's power with, human intelligence, making the workforce resilient.
Right, so it's not AI instead of people, but AI helping people navigate change. And it sounds like HR departments themselves are feeling the squeeze.
Oh, definitely. The report says nearly 2/3, 62% of HR leaders feel they're working beyond capacity, which just highlights why tech is needed for the repetitive stuff, right? To free them up for the more strategic, human-centric work.
Makes sense. And you can't ignore culture in all this.
Absolutely fundamental. SHRM's data shows a really strong link between a positive culture and motivation. It was something like 83% motivated in good cultures versus only 45% in poor ones.
That's a massive difference.
Huge. It really shows how tech, well-being, culture, they're all tangled up together. You can't really fix one without thinking about the others.
Okay, so that sets the scene. Loads of pressure, changing expectations, tech evolving. How did Ingomu itself actually do amidst all this in 2024? What did their data show?
Yeah, this is where they get specific about their own impact. Based on their live virtual sessions, nearly 4,000 wellness scores submitted. They saw a really significant average improvement.
How significant?
70%. An average wellness score boost of 70%.
Wow, 70% average improvement.
Right.
That's impressive. Did they break that down, like where people started and ended?
They did. The average starting score was 4.65 out of 10, and the average end score was 7.91.
Okay, a definite jump. And across different types of coaching.
Life coaching was the biggest group. 40% participation saw a 61% improvement. Spiritual coaching, about 25% participation, also hit 61% improvement.
Okay.
Wellness coaching, 15% participation, got a 63% improvement. So pretty solid gains across the board.
But was there one area that stood out?
There was actually work coaching. It had lower participation, only 20%, but it showed the highest wellness score improvement, 83%.
83%. That's fascinating. So fewer people used it, but it had the biggest impact on their well-being score.
Exactly, which is quite insightful, right? It suggests that maybe tackling those specific work challenges, those professional stressors, might have a disproportionately large positive effect on overall well-being. The need seems particularly acute there.
That makes a lot of sense. If work stress is dragging you down, fixing that gives a big lift. So given these needs and results, how is coaching itself changing? The report mentioned some key shifts.
Yeah, three main evolutions. First is this AI-powered, always-on support.
Like Ingomu's Eric.
Exactly. Their AI coach assistant gives you instant resources, personalized nudges, helps track SMART goals, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-bound.
And it's available 234/7.
Like having support right when you need it. And this isn't just Ingomu, is it?
No, they connect it to a wider trend. They cited Gartner predicting that by 2027, 30% of enterprise coaching interactions will have AI assistance.
And Ingomu saying, we're already doing that.
Pretty much. Okay, so that's AI. What's the second evolution?
Making learning more engaging and community-focused.
Yeah.
Gamification, community features.
So less like homework, more interactive. What does that look like?
Things like a community feed, almost like a focused social media where people share progress, cheer each other on, achievement badges, streaks for keeping up engagement, that kind of thing.
Tapping into that social connection, maybe a bit of healthy competition. Did that actually work?
Seems so. The report mentioned BetterUp's 2024 findings, teams with strong coaching communities. They apparently showed 26% higher engagement and 18% better retention.
Okay, real benefits there. And the third evolution, something about goals.
Correct. Integrated goal setting. They launched a feature that combines that structured, SMART approach with a more empathetic, personalized framework.
How does that work?
The idea is to help you align your ambitions with actual steps, accountability. AI helps track milestones, celebrate wins, adjust if needed, supports growth in career, well-being, whatever your focus is.
So a more holistic, tech-boosted way to approach coaching. Now, the report also brings in the wider world, global unrest. That feels very relevant right now. How's that impacting the workplace?
Yeah, it's unavoidable, isn't it? The report hits on a few key things. First, trade disruptions and the economic slowdown.
Like the U.S.-China tensions, conflicts elsewhere.
Exactly. They lead to tariffs, trade barriers. It messes with supply chains and drags down overall economic growth. The UN, for instance, has actually lowered its global growth forecast for 2025, partly because of this stuff. Expected growth is down to 2.4%.
You definitely feel those ripples. And supply chains themselves, they seem so fragile now.
Totally. The report uses the Red Sea crisis as a stark example. The attacks on ships caused a massive 90% drop in container shipping through there.
90%.
Yeah. Forced ships onto longer, costlier routes, more delays, higher costs. It just showed how vulnerable things are.
Absolutely. And it's not just global trade, right?
Yeah.
The report mentions potential government budget cuts having knock-on effects, too.
Potential cuts in the U.S., for example, that could reduce funding for key research agencies. Think NSF, NIST, National Science Foundation, National Institute of Standards and Technology.
Why does that matter for business?
Well, those agencies are crucial for funding R&D, basic research. Cuts could really slow down innovation long-term, impact competitiveness.
And not just big tech, but smaller businesses, too.
Definitely. A lot of small businesses rely on grants or support from these kinds of programs for their own R&D. Less funding means less access for them, potentially stifling innovation and entrepreneurship.
Okay, so that's funding.
Yeah.
Then there are actual policy shifts. Taxes, tariffs.
Right. The report touches on the debate around extending the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, projecting, I think, a $4.5 trillion drop in federal revenue if it's fully extended over 10 years. That raises questions about funding public services, investment.
And tariffs.
Yeah, the recent U.S. tariffs, Businesses like Walmart have publicly said they increase costs, and those costs often get passed on to consumers eventually.
So it's a really tricky landscape for businesses. Did the report suggest how they might respond strategically?
It did. Things like diversifying supply chains, not putting all your eggs in one basket geographically, continuing to invest in innovation, maybe finding alternative funding if government sources shrink,
Okay.
also advocating with policymakers, making the business case, and just having really solid risk management plans for economic bumps in the road.
Adaptability and foresight sound key. Okay, let's bring it back to coaching. Given all this context, the pressures, the tech, the global uncertainty, what specific coaching trends does the report see for 2025?
It highlights 5 main ones. First, AI augmentation. We covered that, Gartner's 30% prediction. Second, micro-coaching moments.
Micro-coaching, like quick hits of guidance.
Exactly. People wanting brief, targeted support right when they need it, maybe facing a tough meeting or a specific challenge, not always a full-hour session.
Makes sense in a fast-paced world. What else?
Third, dealing with hybrid work dynamics. Coaching is seen as vital for keeping communication clear, engagement up, teams connected when people are spread out. Fourth, resilience development. With automation risks and economic shifts, coaching is crucial for helping people reskill, adapt, build that mental toughness.
Right, preparing for change. And the last one.
Data-driven HR insights. The report mentions Ingomu's own plans for dashboards and analytics, helping leaders actually measure the impact and ROI of their coaching efforts.
So coaching becoming more personalized, accessible, measurable, really tailored to current needs, which sounds like it leads to a clear call to action for leaders in the report.
It definitely does. It hammers home the ROI, cites the ICF figure, and average 5.7 times return on investment for coaching.
5.7x, that's compelling. Any other bottom line benefits mentioned?
Yeah, Gallup data suggesting companies investing in employee growth see 21% higher profitability, and WHO data linking that investment to 41% lower absenteeism.
Wow. Profitability, attendance,
Yeah.
those are hard numbers. So why is now the time to really lean into this investment?
Well, the report points to the obvious. Rising stress and burnout need scalable solutions. Plus, lots of leadership transitions happening. New leaders need support, emotional agility, and maybe the biggest driver, talent. Attracting and keeping good people increasingly depends on offering growth, purpose, not just the old benefits package. Coaching is central to that.
Right. So if we had to boil down this whole deep dive, the main message from the State of the Workplace Growth Report 2025, what is it?
I think the core takeaway is this really significant accelerating shift towards integrated tech-enhanced coaching. It's not a fringe benefit anymore. It's becoming central.
Driven by what?
A mix of things. The urgent need to support well-being, the need to adapt to tech like AI, and frankly, the need for businesses to navigate a really complex, bumpy global landscape.
And it's not just a nice to have. The report argues there are real, measurable upsides.
Absolutely. For individuals, their wellness, their skills. And for the organizations, profitability, retention, resilience, the value proposition is becoming much clearer.
Okay. So as you're listening to this, maybe think about how these forces, AI, well-being demands, global pressures, the evolution of coaching, might play out for you. The future of work seems to demand this blend, doesn't it? Human insight, human connection, amplified by smart technology, all aimed at building teams that aren't just productive, but resilient and genuinely empowered. How does that land in your world, in your organization? Definitely something to mull over. Thanks for exploring this with us today.